my other monitor.
Look at you! It's like you've done this before.
I came, so I was late because I was making notes, like a lot of.
Oh my gosh, you two
like,
are substantially more prepared than I am tonight.
No, I was like,
all the High Republic novels right here.
I will try not to spill any more tea on my High Republic novels.
That'd be good, probably.
Probably. All right. Why can't I get my other light to work?
I was.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Ryan.
I know that we all probably.
Oh, and Ryan's gone.
Yeah, I think we lost Ryan.
He's like, it's such a powerful thing that I'm just gonna bounce. Okay, got the cover for Fallen Star opened up over here. And let that. It's not too bad. It'll dry. It'll be fine. There he is.
Hey, I have no idea what happened there. I apologize.
It's all good.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Absolutely. And you were telling something super profound, dude. So.
Yeah, I mean this is not profound. It's more like I don't know how we are going to talk about this latest episode of the Book of Boba Fett without spoilers.
No, I don't think we can. I think we're just gonna have to, I will have to just make something up real quick and throw it on the screen and be like, spoiler warning.
Yeah.
Hey, there's nothing you can say that isn't a spoiler.
It was
the title of it is a spoiler.
the title is a spoiler. I mean, I feel like if you had watched episode 4 that you knew that they were going to do this, but I didn't know it was going to be and this is a spoiler right here. I didn't know it was going to be a standalone episode. So divergent, you know.
I don't know if either of you have ever noticed this, but there seems to be a theme in Netflix shows where so like when they did all the Marvel ones, so Daredevil, Punisher, everything, about like if they're 10 episodes, let's just say they're 10 episodes, maybe they're 12 or 13, but let's say they're around 10 episodes. About episode 7, there's always a cool, we're gonna go do this other thing for a little bit. Every time, every single one. If you go back and watch Jessica Jones, Iron Fist,
true, yeah.
Every time, it's like episode 7. We're gonna do a go back in time, or just go tell a side story for the entire episode before they come back the next episode to whatever the main story was. And when I watched this, like so many things crossed my mind, but that kind of crossed my mind too. Of like, is that what this is? This is their chance because it's not that long of a season. Like, is this their chance to like step away for it a little bit? And of course, then it was, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, I was sitting there like, I've got a lot of feelings about this episode. Like, I mean, it hit in all the right ways. I don't know how good this episode was for this series, though. Like, and I could go into that. I can go into why. Oh man, I can't wait for this episode.
That's what's cool. We're gonna go into it. We're gonna go into it.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Rich said, let's just say if you haven't watched it, you shouldn't be here.
100%.
A little bit.
100%.
It's one of those things like, where I'm not a spoiler guy either, but it's like there's no way, right? There's no way you haven't seen which character is in this episode. It's impossible.
Yeah,
it's also in the first 30 seconds of the episode, so.
Yeah, I mean, again, I actually went back because I loved this episode so much. I went back and did like a minute by minute, like, this is what I liked about this. This is what I liked about that. Like, I couldn't wait to sit down and talk about this episode. I know that there's a lot of other things that we want to talk about, but this just blew. Like, again, I thought there was just going to be more like a visit, like a cameo.
Oh, no.
I was not ready for this.
It was not.
You know? So much better.
It was not
that
at all.
You know?
Rich is asking me if we need a mod.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like there's, because again, it's like, yeah, I'd love, I mean, I feel like I would love to hear your all's thoughts about this episode, what you think about it. Of course, I'd love to hear what everybody thinks about how this fits and into the like larger, Book of Boba Fett narrative, like how this fits in, and then just call outs. Like I'd be interested to see, there was what could be called fan service, but what I feel like were more like wonderful little visits from things that I loved in the past, including droids.
Yes.
So many other movie references, including one of my favorite movies from the 1990s that involves a robot traveling from the future. So yeah, I cannot wait to talk about this episode.
The lovely droid that showed up that we'll get to. Shanna, my wife, could tell you that I literally was like a cymbal monkey when that happened. I was like, and then I'm like, and she's like, I'm like, he's just so adorable. And she, after a couple minutes on the screen, she's like, okay, he's pretty damn cute. I'm like, right?
Yeah.
No, I was
Give
watching
that dude
it
his
while,
own show.
I was watching it while my wife was sleeping. She was asleep next to me. And I woke her up like twice because I was like,
my wife just kept giving me the side eye because every time she was laying on the couch and I'd pause it and like, babe, and she's like, go ahead. I did it like 4 times. I'm like, okay, hold on, but this is important because I'm like, but I just need you to know.
yeah.
I like have in my notes.
See, Shanna even
I have in
agrees.
my notes. Yay. Yeah. Like at one, this could easily have, all of my notes could just be emoji happy face thumbs up. Like that's the whole, that's all of this.
Is that all we need for this entire live stream? Is just big emojis on the screen and we'll just broadcast that for an hour? Is that all we need?
Yeah.
That would express my feelings pretty accurately.
Yeah.
I know. My wife is confirming right there that that's literally what I did multiple times. I'd pause it. She's under her blanket on the couch and she just kind of looks up at me like, all right, just go, just do it. Just come on, just tell me. I think it took us probably an extra 25 minutes to get to the show.
I feel the same way. I feel the exact same. I can't wait to hear everybody's thoughts about this.
Well, then should we just get into it then? Should we do
Let's
it?
get into it.
Let's
do it. Punch it.
Sweet. I got all the cameras working this time. Awesome.
It all worked.
It all worked. I got the updates up there. I didn't actually put both. And I actually put some new, I changed up the thing a little bit. A little powered by there at the bottom to make it seem like we're official. Because we have all new music.
It looks nice. Yeah, it looks really good.
Nice.
Yeah, we got all new music now. I moved us over to Upbeat. So we have access to all this new kind of cool tunes and stuff, which is kind of cool. And then powered by Ecamm. Because, Rich, I'm doing this. I'm trying to make us look like real streamers now. Powered by Ecamm. I even added up at the top up here. I added under the castle. I removed that little coffee mug because it didn't really mean anything to us anymore. But I made sure to put Twitch and all the other stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
We stream because we're streaming literally everywhere. Right, it's cool. So, Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. I'm sounding a little more official right now because we're just so excited to get into the Book of Boba Fett. We have comic book stuff to talk about too, but I mean, tonight is episode 5. Tonight is really, let's just be honest here, news and updates. So it's kind of just to bury the lead. We just wanted to bury the lead a little bit. That's not really what it is. Oh my gosh.
And welcome back, Brandon. We're so glad to have you come back. And I was so excited to have you back on the show after this last episode of the Book of Boba Fett because I feel like there's so much that's in this episode that it warrants more people to be a part of this discussion. So we're excited to have you back. Thank you so much.
I'm always so excited to be part of this. You guys know that. I always have so much fun talking to you guys.
This is I cannot wait. This is so I've been looking forward to this all week. And then of course I finally got to watch the episode. I'm like, oh well hell, these hours are just gonna crawl by now. But Brandon, before we get started, I have to show you and show Ryan, because I got it done this week. My new tattoo that Brandon designed for me.
It turned out so good, man.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
So it's the 3 hands that Brandon put together. You can see the son, the daughter on the bottom, and the father on top. And it's kind of hard to see. Oh, I need to adjust my lights. Hold on. It'll be easier to see if I can actually adjust my lights a little bit. It's a little brighter right here, but there's some detail. We actually changed. We didn't do too much in the color, so like on the sun's wrist, you can kind of see it there. You made sure to capture the moon, like for night and for dark, and then the sun for the daughter. So he's like, no, I want to keep those details in there, so that I'm like, that's perfect. So we can go lighter on some of the color, like on the sun's hand instead of being all black, so that those symbols represent the thing that they're supposed to be. But
man. It looks so good, man. It's really trippy to see something that I drew on like my iPad on your hand, like in the coolest way. Like it is like, seriously, like it's so flattering. Like it's so cool that you did that. I think it's amazing.
It's awesome. I can't thank you enough, man. The idea is brilliant. And when I gave it to my artist, he's like, yeah, this looks. I get there and he had printed it up, and he's like, okay, I gotta scale it back because the printing he did initially was like way too big. But once we got it centered, he's like, no, this fits perfect. And all we did was change up the some of the lines on the outside to, instead of being be black and like gold, we just did purple, just a single color of purple, and then mixed in with like yellow ochre. So when it fades in a little bit, the hand colors will tone down a little bit. It's still kind of swollen right now, but
totally, yeah. Especially like I did it on like a white canvas, and your hand is not a pure white canvas.
No, it's not. Definitely not.
But it looks awesome. Yeah,
it came out great, man.
You got all the details in the sleeves and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I tried to get the brother's sleeve to kind of look like his eye also, and like if you go back to the like he has that pattern under his eye.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, the detail, it's kind of hard to see on my camera. The detail is definitely there. Maybe I should have an overhead camera, but I think once it finishes healing and this all kind of knocks down, I think the subtlety, like in the daughter's, because the line work in the daughter's wristband, I think that'll actually come through a lot.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, it's really
looks
well
so good.
done. Like the detailing is so good, man.
Yeah.
Like he did a great job, and that must have hurt.
No, I'm not kidding. I've had several people ask me like, what are the most painful tattoos? Like, what are the easiest tattoos I've had? I had somebody. Right after I got this one done, someone asked me, was like super curious, like, what's the easiest tattoo you have had done? I'm like, my hands. And the person told this to, like, wait, your hand? I'm like, it completely surprised me. Like, normally, and Brandon knows this, when you're getting tattooed, and I don't want to assume this for everybody, I have to imagine it's probably something close. When you first get tattooed, like if you sit down for, let's say, an hour session or whatever, it takes, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever, some time period for everyone to get your mind in a place where you can kind of like stop paying constant attention to it. It's because it doesn't ever feel good, but you can kind of like in the beginning you're like, okay, it hurts, it's uncomfortable, but let me get my mind someplace where I don't think about it too much. And then you can start talking to the artist and kind of have a conversation, and you can go on that for a while. And but it takes a little bit to get your mind in that place, just to kind of like, okay, put it on mind. Now I can not pay attention to it so much. Nothing with this, like not even. I mean, it's uncomfortable, like a normal tattoo would be, but no pain of any kind. We were done in an hour, like an hour and 10 minutes, I think was the entire piece. Like color, line work, everything.
That's really quick.
Yeah, he was totally surprised. Like, oh, that's faster than I was expecting. But yeah, the backs of my hands are the least discomfort I've had in a tattoo, other than a hand poke tattoo I have on my leg. Somebody like literally hand poked from like a deer antler and a needle. Yeah. Than that, I have Norse runes on my leg that the artist who did my sleeve did for me.
That's really cool.
But other than that, these are the least pain of, like I was like, okay, maybe this is a fluke. Maybe this hand will be different. No, not at all.
That's great.
Didn't bug me in the way.
I was like, good news for me.
Right?
I'm doing a little Millennium Falcon, right here.
Oh, nice. That'll be awesome.
That's awesome.
That'll be right.
So
next
awesome.
week, I'm completing the set. Next week, I'm getting my knuckles, the backs of my fingers done.
Ooh.
And it's gonna be It's gonna be Star Wars in Arabish. So it's gonna be
amazing.
Yeah. So I wanted it when you gave me this design. I was like, you know what, this is great because it's one of those like, if you know, you know. So most people would see this. Even most Star Wars fans would see this and have no idea what they're looking at. Like you'd have to really know what it is you're looking at. And I think for my fingers, it's going to be the same thing. Even Star Wars fans are probably generally not going to know what it is, which is kind of cool. Like that's what I wanted.
That's my favorite kind of stuff. I really like subtle references to things like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like I dig on that so much. I like that it's not just I like things that are that have that kind of layer that's on top of them. That's like, yeah, this is how into it I am. Like again, like even I know this is gonna sound funny. I've had like tons of stuff that have been Millennium Falcon, but I've got this painting right back here because It was the first time I saw the Millennium Falcon backwards, like in that angle, and I was like, oh, I like that. I'm gonna get that. I have a question for you though, Jeff, on the tattoos. I noticed that both are circular.
Mm-hmm.
Was that planned to like get them to be parallels?
No.
Like one of them is a compass and the other one is that kind of circular design.
It was not planned that way. Actually, when I got this done, I had a rough idea of what I wanted this to be, very, very rough. And when I went in for a consultation, the artist who at the same shop who she and I talked, we kind of flipped through some books, had an idea of like, ooh, maybe a compass. So she Googled classic compass, and we started finding these like old Sailor Jerry style like compasses, and like the old classic styles of tattooing, but like a very clear like sextant style, like sextant and compass you'd see on like an old maritime ship. So like a really simple, like just very simple nautical compass. And we're like, oh, that's perfect. Like it doesn't have a lot of detail, some basic lines, and that's it. And so when I came in the next time, she had added all the kind of the flowers to kind of match the carnations the marigolds on my arm. But no, and then Brandon and I talked, and he's like, okay, I'll see if I can come up with a design for you. And he sent this back, and I'm like, holy shit. Like, that's like literally what I want. Like literally what I want. And it just happened to be circles.
So happy, man. Like, yeah. Thank you too. Like it is so cool to me that I got to be part of that. It really
it's awesome,
is.
dude. It's so rad. Now I just
amazing
how to,
artwork.
Like, connect these together, and oh yeah, so many plans now. Like so many more tattoos I need to get now.
I hope Jeff, you're able to take a picture of it and like get that like close up picture, because I'd love to see more of the detail. I'm like I it looks so good from even just what I'm seeing, and I've got like my face like it's a window. Like I'm like trying to see, like I can't. It looks so good.
I took a picture at the shop, but I'll take another picture in about a week when the swelling goes down. I mean, it's not uncomfortable right now, but like my hand is very clearly swollen on the back right now. So when the swelling goes down a little bit and the colors have started, like the scabbing process is kind of done, I'll take another picture. It'll look a little bit more clear at that point. So, put that aside, should we get into the Book of Boba Fett? Because I feel like we probably should do that.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, I think we should do that. So spoiler alerts, everybody.
Oh yeah, I did not plan a big banner. I do have this. I do have, or subscribe. I should fix this transition, but I do have the subs, which is good. But I do not have a spoiler. I should have done that. But for everyone watching, massive spoiler alert. We are going to spoil episode 5. So sorry. There's no way that we can avoid it. So yeah, that's just a thing. That's just a thing.
There's no way.
So who wants to kick us off? Who wants to kick us off?
I'm all for our guest.
Brandon, we're putting you on the spot.
I will say, as we go through this discussion, one of the things Brandon, we did last week was we gave the episodes a letter grade, and I think it'd be great. We're all done. When we're all, getting to where we're going on this, it'd be great to hear everybody's kind of letter grade against for this episode. So yeah, I think I could probably predict it, but we'll go for it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and give it an A+. There's only one other episode this season that I would give an A+ to, and it's episode 2, which I also thought was fantastic, but how could I not? I mean, it's totally an A+ episode for me. It's spoiler, but it's kind of not a Book of Boba Fett episode, but also if you look deeper into it, it is. It's so good. I'm trying to think where to start, but as everybody probably knows, at the end of episode 4, we get the sneaky little stinger where Boba Fett's like, oh, we need an army, we need muscle. And then you get this quirky little snippet of Mando's music. So I think everybody was expecting Din Djarin to make an appearance in episode 5, and boy did he.
Yep. He totally
made an appearance.
I know. Again, in the pre-show we were talking about this. I thought it was going to be a cameo. And by the way, Rich, I've got like a pretty solid Star Trek episode. I'm holding it. I'm Star Trek reference. I'm holding it till the end, so that it's got to be earned. But yeah, I will say that I thought it was just going to be like a cameo. I thought it was going to be, he was just going to show up and it was just going to be, oh yeah. I didn't even think it was going to be Pedro Pascal. I thought, oh, they're probably going to put some guy in a suit and they'll just walk on and it's like, oh, look, there's Mando. So
me too. That's kind of what I thought too.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same. I'm like, okay, he's going to show up or they're going to like do something and then all of a sudden he's just going to walk out of a hangar bay and be like behind them. Like you'll hear his voice behind them and like they turn around and Boba Fett will have a look on him and like make some snarky comment about like, where's your ship or something, you know, something like that would happen. And then like, okay, on with the episode. But I agree with you, Brandon, that like for anybody who is a casual watcher would just watch it and go, that wasn't a Book of Boba Fett episode. What are you talking about? But it really wasn't. It really was. It absolutely played into what we needed to see, in my opinion. Like it had to, I think we could keep going on this sort of like ongoing story of what's going to turn into a climax with the Pikes. It sounds like that's what it's feeling like right now. Or at least get close enough to it that there's ready for another story to start off. But I feel like if Din Djarin had just shown up, it would have worked and it would have been an episode and it would have been a successful episode, but not showing where he's been and what he's been through. Because if he walked in there, he'd have to have the Darksaber. The Darksaber would have to come out at some point. And the problem with that would be everyone, oh, wait, hold on. You're just going to just show him with the Darksaber? Like, oh, he's just going to be here? Wait, what happened with Bo-Katan? How did that play out? Because that's where we left off. Wait, is he just a master of using the saber now? What if he's not a master? How does like there would be a whole bunch of backstory questions that we would not have gotten. I think for anybody who thinks like, wait, we spent all this time with it, it's like, yeah, because there were so many. If he was going to be brought into this season, there are so many things that are happening with him as a developed character that were still in development, that having him just show up in the episode would have been almost like, okay, first half of this episode is just plot holes, just massive plot holes everywhere. Well, everyone's like, what the hell's going on here? So like, this was necessary.
I think so too. And to that point, I mean, we know how a lot of Star Wars fans can be. You know how many complaints there would have been if he did just pop up.
Yeah.
Or like my theory was at the end of episode 5, Boba Fett would finally be like, all right, I'm going to call my friend. And we would get like a holo of Din Djarin like, hey, I need your help. Can you come down? That's maybe what I thought we would get. But if you really think of the grand scheme of what the Book of Boba Fett is about, it's kind of about new beginnings and where he's kind of trying to reinvent himself, right? He suddenly is not this person that he has been as far as we've known him. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly the spot that the Mandalorian or Din Djarin is in his life right now. He just, he doesn't have Grogu anymore. He's now in this point where he too is trying to figure out who he is without this constant. For Boba Fett is being a bounty hunter. For Din Djarin now, it's who am I without Grogu? Who am I without this mission to find who, where he belongs? And so it's almost they're telling this same like parallel story with him at the same time as Book of Boba Fett, and it's thematically is the Book of Boba Fett. Like it's that same theme they're trying to keep drilling in throughout this show. So it's like it was an episode of the Book of Boba Fett, even though he wasn't in it.
Yeah, you're taking the words right out of my mouth. I feel like this was a symbol for like all of the themes that the other Boba Fett episodes were going through. I made like a ton of notes. I actually just kind of added a couple of things that I wanted to build on. But yeah, I was watching this episode, and there are those moments where Mando's on the transport, and I don't know who said it online, but how Pedro Pascal has mastered helmet acting, this ability to like read emotion. He seemed so lonely, and I wrote down that this episode was like the larger Boba Fett story in that it dealt with loneliness, community, regret, and then like, what's my path for redemption? Like, how do I take all of these things that I feel. I'm lonely. How do I build community? I have regret. How do I redeem myself? I mean, now you have Din Djarin on an actual redemption path, but I feel like that is exactly where the Book of Boba Fett is running to. I will say I thought that this was possibly more expertly handled than the earlier 4 episodes, but the themes were similar, very much.
I have a I have a very specific comment on that, what you just said there, Ryan. And tell me if I'm mistaken on this one, but I'm fairly certain that the other 4 episodes were all done by Robert Rodriguez. I think all 4 of them were.
I don't know
he
if
did
all
at least
4,
a couple.
I know that's Robert. Yes,
He did a couple of
yes.
them. This was Bryce Dallas Howard, and to me,
Yes.
like as soon as it was over, and my wife and I saw Bryce's name come up on the screen, I'm like, oh, yeah, of course it was Bryce. Like she needs to make her and the other directors from The Mandalorian, like specifically Bryce, she needs to make more episodes of these shows. She should be given her own series in Star Wars to make a TV show, because her way of telling that story on screen is just amazing. It works so well. And no offense to Robert Rodriguez, but some of the other episodes, I think some of the challenging points of them, like Ryan, you and I talked about last week, I think some of the challenging points with them, from my perspective, were directorial choices made in how the story was played out on the screen. But yeah, for what you said, my personal belief is that Bryce is the one who really helped make it come to life in the way that it did.
I agree with you 100%. There's so much in that episode that is just purely acted without anything being said, and it says a lot, like what Brian was saying. Like there's a few scenes where he's just lonely, like he's just lost and alone, and he says nothing. No one says anything to him, but it's just the way it is directed that it's just like you get that feeling.
It's almost the
she does an excellent job with that.
Yeah, she totally did. It's the scenes where he's walking. So for everyone who watched it, I had to go look it up to make sure the world that he is on, that ring world, is called Glavis. It's apparently a city ring, and apparently there's mirrors built around the city ring that we saw part of it happening, where the sunlight was like moving across. That's what they do, is they create sunlight so people who live on the surface or the interior of the ring get sunlight. Anyway, so while he's walking down one of the streets of Glavis, to your point, Brandon, like he looks super lonely, but it almost felt more that way, like he almost needed to be injured. Once he had got the injury from the Darksaber fighting the Clantunians, and when he was walking back out again, it almost, to me, it was like, okay, actually that's better. I'm glad that he's injured now. Not because I wanted him to be injured, but something about walking with a limp felt more like the man with no name, or like felt like some Western where the gunslinger doesn't just walk into town like, I'm good, I'm solid, I am ready to go. It's that gunslinger or whoever it is coming with some baggage. In your case, what you said, emotional baggage, and an easy way to express that is a physical injury. Okay, the person's limping, but it outwardly expressed the emotional challenges he was dealing with the loss of Grogu, no ship, trying to find his own way. Like, for me, it actually worked. Like, even once he got healed by, oh my God, I'm so excited about the person who healed him. Now that we know that person's name, oh my God, it was just so satisfying.
Yeah.
But even after that, he was healed by that person, he still walks with a bit of a limp. And I think that's really good, because it suppressed the pain to a degree, but it didn't take it away. And I think that was almost kind of a really good metaphor for what he's really dealing with. Like, that helped, and the interaction he went with the armor and this other character helped, but it didn't. He still has these things he's got to deal with.
He's vulnerable. I mean, that is what it was. Like, I really when he's injured. And by the way, look, guys, if you're still on the episode, we're gonna it's all spoiler heavy at this point. He's injured by the Darksaber in a way that legit any one of us handling a lightsaber would get injured in this way. Like, of course, this thing that has no mass that you're just swinging around, you got to be careful, because it's literally a thing that can cut both ways. It could easily be turned back onto you, and but I like how he's injured, and often, like, you know, when your hero is injured, it's in the shoulder or it's in the leg, and, you know, oh, they're able to get by. Like, you know, you think of many action movies where someone is literally shot and it's like, it's cool, I'm fine. And what I liked about that was it reminded me of Die Hard, where, you know, John McClane's getting injured and he's getting brutally injured, and those injuries stick with him to the point where at the end he's kind of like dragging his leg forward.
I just need to find some aspirin. Keep finding little containers of aspirin. There's nothing in them. He's like, finally just need some aspirin.
And the thing that I liked about that is it's exactly like it's great because it makes it more real. He's injured, and of course that injury is going to stick with him, and it's hard, and but thematically it made him vulnerable. It said this guy is not indestructible. That he's covered in Beskar, but he's just as, you know, he's got his areas of softness. And like I liked that. I liked how some wounds aren't easily closed. That was so great. I don't mean to go like so deep on that, but I was like, wow, this is great.
Good. Yeah, and it's I also liked with that when the injury originally happens, you know, he's in the, I guess we can call it a butcher shop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a meat packing facility.
So when that happens after the fight's over, which, by the way, incredible, such a cool fight. Mm-hmm. But he even realizes, like, you know what, I'm about at the end of my rope for the day. And he walks out and he looks at the rest of the guys that are there, and he's like, doesn't even try to think about violence or threat. He's like, how about I just walk away and you guys can take whatever's in there. Please leave me alone. And like he even is very clearly like, okay, something is going on. And it's like from the get-go, they make it apparent that it's a pretty serious injury, and which it is. I can't tell you how many times I've watched any kind of Star Wars media or Reddit or whatever and thought, how have none of them hurt themselves with this thing? I would do it within 10 minutes of having one. You know what I mean? Yes. It makes sense too, because he's never been formally trained in any way with it. So it was a really logical thing to happen too.
Yeah, and I think speaking of that, the use of the Darksaber specifically, or lightsabers in general, like I think that's the thing that was really good to reinforce in this episode, that the purpose, and actually we'll get to it in a minute, but like more so in a little bit later in the conversations with the other Mandalorians about the Darksaber and its use and trying to use the Darksaber, but specifically lightsabers in general, they're meant to be used by Force users. And the reason for it is because Force users, to your point, Ryan, because they don't have any mass, you're just swinging a handle around. There's no weight there. So it's really easy to just move the thing however you want. So you're going to move it in a way that you don't expect. I mean, that's what you would assume. And so by being a Force user, you can detect those things and feel those vibrations in the Force and have a better... You have more capability or more tools available to you to control it and use it the way that you need to. So if you aren't a Force user, it's going to become a very difficult thing for anyone to use. Now, we did see in the Clone Wars that there's a Tar Vizsla who had when the first Darksaber first shows up in the Clone Wars. I think it's with is it Tar Vizsla? Or is it Pre Vizsla? Pre Vizsla. Thank you. It's Pre Vizsla, and he ends up being defeated, and Maul takes it from him. But you get the sense that he had it, and he'd had it for a while, and he'd been learning how to use the thing. And then, of course, Maul gets it, and he's a Force user, so he can use it without any problem. But then when we get to the area of the show, shortly after what we were just talking about, where he finds out where the Mandalorians are here, they've kind of relocated themselves. He finds the armor, and then he finds this other character, and I know we'll get to it here in a second, but like he starts to learn the importance of the Darksaber, not just the importance of it, but physically what it means. It cannot just simply be wielded. I really like that they did that they made it something special that isn't just a differently shaped lightsaber. It is something unique in and of itself that has to be treated unique because of what it is. But the person I had to go back and turn on the subtitles because the armorer says something like when Mando's on the ground, he's been healed, they have an interaction. She's like, he pulls out the Darksaber, holds it. She barely even turns, and she says his first name, but I'm like, wait, did she just say Vizsla? And I'm like, wait, hold on, rewind. My wife's like, what? I'm like, you just wait. Rewind, subtitles, turn on the subtitles on Apple TV. I'm like, Paz Vizsla. I'm like, oh my God, he's a Vizsla. I don't know. I don't know if I want to be the one to say it, of like why that's such an important thing, or if somebody else wants to say why the Vizsla name is such an important thing, or why in that scene he says he ends up challenging Din. I don't know. Should I do it, or does somebody else want to do it?
No, go for it. No,
go ahead, Jeff.
In the scene when Paz Vizsla challenges Mando and basically says, "It's my family heritage." I forget the words he uses, but basically, it's my family heritage. Like, I'm challenging you because by all rights it should be mine. For anybody, this is a Legends. I guess it's technically Legends. No, it is. It was Legends until last night. It was Legends until last night. In what people don't know is in Legends, the first and only Mandalorian Jedi was, what was it? It was House Vizsla or Clan Vizsla. I forget the character's first name.
Tar Vizsla.
Tar Vizsla. Thank you. So it was Tar Vizsla. Was the very first and only Mandalorian Jedi. I think like 10 or 15,000 years before the birth of Skywalker. It was like way back. Very much Old Republic days, or probably even pretty Old Republic days. And that character, or that person, created their lightsaber, and it was the Darksaber. It was a unique. And when that great Jedi, fantastic Jedi, when he died, was interred on Mandalore, but the Darksaber was kept on Coruscant in the Jedi Temple. The Mandalorians didn't like that, so they snuck in and stole it back, and it became the story that we heard in the episode. But like, that's something we've all known in Legends for a long time. But I love it, and I don't know if anybody either of you wrote down what she said, the armor said, but she makes a comment that says the Darksaber and the story behind the Darksaber is basically the stuff of Legends, or something to that, very similar. And I had to pause it, and I should have written it down. But what struck me about that was twofold. It was fantastic. One, it was practical. It is essentially the stuff of Legends, very literally. It is. And second, it was the stuff of Star Wars Legends, and they've now made it canon. Because prior to last night's episode, that story was not something we heard anywhere. That wasn't officially canon. It was part of Legends content in books. Everyone accepted it, but it was never part. It was not officially part of canon, so far as I know. And last night, her saying that was like this cool double entendre of like, yes, it was metaphorically speaking the stuff of Legends, and it was actually part of Star Wars Legends. Not anymore, though. I'm like that.
They made another little quip like that about the Mythosaur too, where she's like, "Oh, but that only existed. That the Mythosaur only exists in Legends," and I was like,
yeah,
there." And a great reference to the Mandalorian series itself, where his Ugnaught friend says, "You're a Mandalorian. You rode the mighty Mythosaur." I thought that was great. I even liked the Darksaber as a metaphor for oh man, I'm sorry. Like, I don't mean to do this. Things are sometimes what they are, but at the same time, there is a line that she says to him, which is, and again, I love the whole like, it's so hard to wield, and he's trying to use both hands, and that's actually a great reference to the original Star Wars movies where Mark Hamill was told, oh, you gotta always use two hands because there's so much power that's going through that's what it's like. That's why it's so hard to use a lightsaber, is because there's so much power. But she says two things to him that I was like, oh, they're talking about a Darksaber, but they're also talking about like the burden of doing something right, which is, he says, I wrote these quotes down. He said, it's heavier with each move. And I thought about how that is oh yeah, of course, like this path that you're on, this kind of trying to get to become like kind of a righteous person. It's heavier with each move, and he's just kind of like banging away at it. And then she says, my favorite version of the definition of insanity. She says, persistence without insight will lead to the same outcome.
That was beautiful.
Oh
my God,
I loved it.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
good
loved
quote.
it.
Yeah, 100%.
I will say, Brandon, you in our chat, Seth asked, because of course they bring the spear. Din Djarin has that spear of Beskar and hands it over to the armorer, and the armorer says, by the way, I caught that Beskar lightsaber stops lightsaber in the paper rock scissors breakdown of how weapons work. Lightsaber stops lightsaber. Beskar stops lightsaber, but Beskar beats Beskar.
Yes.
That the Beskar pierces, and I liked how he gives up the spear, and she says, "What do you want? What do you want to be made?" And he wants a gift for Grogu, and there was a great question there that Seth had, which is, "What do you think was forged by Grogu?" And Brandon, I had the exact same thought.
Yeah. Well, we see.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Brandon. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying kind of what you said in the chat, Jeff, but you see just it's a really quick little shot of a bunch of little chains kind of being linked together, and it's he clearly had the intent of it being something to protect Grogu. It's definitely not, oh, I want to make Grogu a bracelet to remember me, but you know what I mean? It was she clearly the armor was like, oh, it's meant for protection, not for weapons. And he's like, well, could it make armor and blah blah blah? And she's like, yeah, and it's really clear it needs to be something. He wants it to be something used to protect Grogu, and I can't think of anything that would exist really that made of chains like that meant for protection other than chainmail.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and when
It
we
also
see
makes me worry for Grogu at the same time.
Oh, of course, yeah, and I mean the way that she references that, what you said, the comment about it's not for weapons, it's for armor, and then yes, we see one frame where we see some unlinked chains or unlinked rings that if you have seen armor even a little bit, like in cosplay or whatever else, you see them land even for a second or two. I'm like, oh, that's chainmail. But then what I was confused about is the little bundle, the little package that was tied up. I'm like, okay, so I believe it is chainmail, but also the bundle was so small. I'm like, Grogu's small, but
yeah,
that was really small. So I'm like,
it's small, but chainmail also, it's very like it could be bundled up in something little,
True. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Although I did like how it's like Grogu gift wrapped, where it has
yes,
it totally looked like his head. I caught that immediately.
Zoomed into the shot, the little ears, like, oh,
yeah,
it's
so cute.
even cute.
No, I mean, there's again, this episode has so much depth from the like grittiness of we were talking in earlier episodes about what movies, like what this reminded of or references, and we were talking about like in a lot of the other earlier episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, this felt very like Godfather-ish. Lots of Godfather references, Godfather 1 and 2. Lots of references of those movies from the 70s of French Connection, Runaway Train, all these things, and of course there's the Wild One reference where they're on the little motorcycles, the fluorescent, yep, exactly, or even the bantha. But the thing that I liked here was and someone Rich caught it, I loved the Halo reference. I thought that looked so cool. Yeah. 100% Halo. Although I don't know why this episode looked more. I wrote at the top of my notes, this looked more like Star Wars. I don't know what it was about this episode, and maybe it's that we're spending so much time on Tatooine, but this looked like Star Wars, and there were very Star Warsy sounds when they're on the when he gets on the elevator to go down to the covert. That's the elevator sound from like Revenge of the Sith. It's all of these references. It looked like, it reminded me of like 2001 and Foundation. And then when they told the story of the Night of 1,000 Tears and we got that flashback.
Oh my God.
Did anybody else catch what that looked like after the explosion?
Terminator.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that was so great.
100%. And the fact that we got to see it, because like it's I think it's named someplace in books or whatever that's even in canon, Night of 1,000 Tears, but I don't recall where I've even heard. I mean, I've heard it, but I've not heard it in canon that I'm aware of. But to see it, I was like enthralled. And I was telling my wife while we were watching, I'm like, we have heard this story, like it's been told in snippets here and there. We have never seen it. We have never seen what actually happened when the planet was literally carpet bombed and just completely and utterly decimated. We've never seen that happen So to see that, like the impact of it, and the way they ran the shots from the ground, looking up at the TIE bombers flying over. Like we got a couple distant shots, but then it went down to the ground. I thought that was super important because and then the what are they, the K1 or K9, whatever they are, whatever model security droids that were walking around, just shooting literally like bodies on the ground. They're just shooting bodies on the ground. Like this was done like it just helps you remember like how bad the Mandalorians had it.
It was one of the more brutal depictions of the Empire I think we've had. Like obviously they're all bad, but it felt just as even though like the Empire destroys entire planets, this somehow felt worse, more personal, just because it was more personal, it was closer. And that was also just so cool because that's the first I think ever live action depiction of Mandalore or Sundari, the city, the big domed city. Like I think that's the first time any of it has ever been shown in like live action.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the only other time we've ever seen it, I think, is in the Clone Wars. In a couple spots, with the Duchess and all that, and then season 7. But we've never seen it live action that I'm aware of. Oh, that was
there was also like a lot of little little Easter eggs. That's what I mean by it was almost like every minute. None of the other episodes did I sit down and like take copious notes on things where I was like, oh my gosh, look at this, look at that. Like there's even a reference to like she's like, oh yeah, like we were able to escape because we were hiding on Concordia. And it's like, oh yeah, because Concord Dawn is a planet in the Mandalorian system. It's like all of these like little references that they had, and even like little plot holes that they were addressing. I know that this went all over the internet because I saw this on Twitter where people were talking about how, oh yeah, this episode fixed the Bo-Katan plot hole. Like, why can't she just take it? Why can't she, if he's offering, why can't she take it? And then she's like, oh no, if you take it, it's essentially bad luck.
Well, and
I like
remember
that too.
And like exactly what you're describing, Ryan, she even told the story of Lady Bo and how she did have it and what happened because she did not win it in combat in their sort of creed and their lore and their belief system, because she did not actually win it originally in combat. She was just given it by Ahsoka, I think, or whoever handed it to her.
Sabine.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, Sabine handed it to her in Rebels. That's right. Handed it to her. She didn't win in combat. And I'm with you, Ryan. I really love that they allowed the armor, especially the armor, that character specifically that is so not even passive aggressive. She's not even aggressive. She is passive in how she goes about all the things she does. I mean, everything when she says this is the way, it very much reminds me of the Ugnaught that he meets and I have spoken. Like I have spoken. It is just finale. Yeah. Okay. Well, you said it. Therefore, the conversation has now stopped. But she never says it with any sort of aggression, which I really love about her character. So even when Din leaves, and you're like, oh my God, that just broke my heart that he had to leave because he showed his helmet to somebody. He can't be here anymore. But even then, she doesn't say it with any sort of aggression towards him. She's just like, this is the way.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just, and he accepts it, and he leaves. And I don't know. I walked away even from that scene in that situation of like, wow. Okay, this is it's very telling about the characters in general.
It is. I do wonder about the armor sometimes, about her reliability as a narrator.
100%.
Oh, yes.
Especially 100%. Because I think, both of you mentioned it, but one thing that she says that interested me is she's like, oh yeah, we were on Concordia, so that's why we were fine, because we were somewhere else. Conveniently leaves out the detail that she and the rest of the Death Watch were exiled there for being kicked off of Mandalore for being violent monsters.
For being too Mandalorian. Like they were Mandalorians are here and you are too much. It's like, how are you too Mandalorian?
Like, you guys need to chill out, go live on the moon. And that's why they were all there. But she very conveniently is like, well, we're the only ones left. Who's going to know why we were there? So it's like sometimes I wonder about her. Like, I don't know what their plan is for her, obviously, but little tiny things like that. I'm like, I wonder. It's just strange because there have been a lot of other instances of Mandalorians not wearing helmets, removing them too, and like that's been okay in the past. But
even with Death Watch, even with
Death Watch, it's almost like she, or maybe whoever was her predecessor, or some of the people who have survived to this point, almost, I don't know, or creating sort of a I don't want to say cult, but like a subsection of Mandalorians that really are almost deviating from what they originally were. And that was just one little moment in the episode where I was like, you definitely left out the fact that you were exiled. That's weird.
Yeah.
Yep.
There is a certain fanaticism that I pick up on in her in how she talks. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you all read any of his the book series, His Dark Materials? Golden Compass, The Subtle Knife, and the Amber Spyglass. I don't know if Brendan, have you ever read that series? Philip Pullman does a series. There was an HBO series called like The Golden Compass, The Subtle Knife on HBO.
I actually haven't. No.
Okay, books are
fantastic. Familiar with it, but I haven't seen it.
Familiar with The Golden Compass, and but continue, please.
The books are the stories are just really amazing. It's an alternate universe, and in it in this particular alternate universe, the church is called oh shoot, I'm blanking on the name. It's basically what they're essentially saying is in this alternate universe, this extraordinarily like fanatic version of what you could call the Catholic Church. They don't call it that. They call it something different. But it's like, it'd be like, what was that movie from the 90s with that was all about like the Church of Guns, and they would like, well, I forget the guy who played Batman in one of the, what was it? What's his name?
Oh yeah, because it's got gun fu in it.
Yes. Gun fu. Yeah,
whatever.
What was that movie? What's the actor's name? He played Batman in Dark Knight.
Yeah, it's a one-word title, and it's not.
So Christian Bale's in this movie, and they basically are like, it's a completely dystopian movie, like, you know, totalitarian government runs everything, like Big Brother sort of thing. But the police in it are like these investigators that use like gun fu. It's very strange. But the overarching in those book series, I'm getting way down the rabbit hole here. Sorry. In that book series, the overarching totalitarian thing in the His Dark Materials books is like this horribly fanatical version of the Catholic Church that is like murders people constantly and secret police. Like it's just like this completely fanatical version of things. But the reason I bring that up is the way that she talks. Equilibrium. Thanks, Rich. The way that the armorer talks in the show strikes me as somebody who comes from a highly fanatical background, but is sort of biding their time. The way that she speaks just, it's like, you're like you said, Brendan, she's saying some things by just leaving out the little details that sort of like manipulate you into thinking a very particular way, but without telling you the other information that would actually be helpful to know the backstory of why you were okay, and like why you do the things that you do, why Death Watch was even created, all of this type of stuff. So I don't want to read too much into her character. It's probably just
me neither. It's like, I'm not necessarily even saying she's going to be like evil and a villain. It's weird. It's I think I lost Ryan for a second there.
It's okay. He'll be back.
Okay. But yeah. Where were we?
Oh, talking about the armor and sort of like the fanaticism and stuff like that she seems to kind of exude a little bit.
But yeah, it definitely. It just makes me wonder where her character is heading, because I don't think they've done it by any means.
Yeah.
It's just worth thinking about.
I agree with you entirely. I saw some comments on Twitter about people immediately drawing a conclusion like, oh, well, there's gonna have to be some sort of like showdown between the armorer and Bo-Katan. I'm like, okay, maybe, but that seems a little. It seems a little too on the nose. Like maybe that would happen, but I don't know. That doesn't feel like something that either character would actually do. Because I mean, Bo-Katan was part of Death Watch for a while, wasn't she? Or she was at least allied with them for a time.
Oh yeah, she definitely was.
She was allied with them for a time, and then decided, no, that's not what I want to do. And then she allied herself with Maul after he took over Death Watch. But then when he took over, like it was a weird set of things. But I don't think she was actually Death Watch.
She was just very heavily associated with it.
Yeah.
I mean, her dad was the CEO.
And people are power hungry too. Like, she's very much interested in getting, and she's got her own storyline with Thrawn, and we'll see how that kind of plays out.
Gosh,
I would assume in season 3 of The Mandalorian. But actually, the vibe that I was getting to the lack of trust for the armorer. And by the way, this is a Star Wars theme, which is do not trust your primary sources. Vader betrayed and murdered your father. You don't trust your primary sources. You got to go find that information for yourself. And also, creeds that are built before your time don't necessarily owe all of your allegiance. And I like this idea that maybe, and this is now I'm prognosticating what I think season 3 is going to be about. The vibe that I was getting was Zuko from Avatar vibes. Zuko is given this redemption task, which is almost impossible. He can return home when he captures or defeats the Avatar, who no one has seen for 1,000 years. And I loved that as what's happening, because he, after Din Djarin says, "Yes, I have taken my helmet off," and I'm reminded of how in that episode that's a whole episode about, hey, sometimes you got to make compromises. Like sometimes the greater good is bigger than what you think is good. And so he's given this impossible task, and I had to write it down. Go to the living waters of the mines of Mandalore, which he says are, that's impossible. It can't be done. It's just like Zuko going and finding. It's like it's almost equivalent to saying, "Yeah, we'll forgive you when pigs fly." And so now he's got to go and chase that down. But in that path, I'm certain he's going to probably learn a thing or two and maybe recognize that, does he need redemption from them, or is he building a new kind of community? It was just like how he has already built a new value system. Like they're like, "Oh, it's too bad you didn't kill Moff Gideon," and he's like, no, the justice will be done upon him. And they're like, "No, he should die." Well, if he deserves death, that will be brought to him, because he's not a vigilante anymore. Again, like we've talked about this with certain Tarantino movies, which of course are also references to Westerns, is the path of redemption's really hard because you got to break away. And yeah, like I could see that happening in season 3, that the armorer becomes, when you're looking for a new villain, it could easily be the armorer.
I think so. I think there is a reason that the show is called The Mandalorian and not The Bounty Hunter or The Former Mandalorian. There's a reason for that. I think that's deeper than what it seems on the surface. I think he essentially, obviously speculation, but I think he in himself is the future of what it means to be a Mandalorian, rather than following this weird fanatical creed. Even though, I don't necessarily think they're evil, but it's outdated.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one, Brendan. I would love to see. I could envision him taking on like whenever his series wraps up, like him taking on a youngling to start teaching, or one that wants to volunteer to be taught or something, and then having a conversation about, do I need to wear a helmet, whatever, and he can him just saying something like, only if you want to, and the kid choosing to, but him giving the kid the option of no, this is having some sort of decision put in front of him where he has to say it out loud that it's okay for you to choose, as opposed to the fanaticism or the sort of hard and fast binary choice that was given to him when he grew up, and you either do this or you're not one of us. I could see that playing out for him in a future season. That would be a really interesting way to round out his character. And what I would hope never happens is on the Mandalorian's front specifically, or Din Djarin in this case, what I hope never happens is where they hey, he takes off his helmet and just decides he's good taking on and off his helmet. I don't ever want him to do that. Boba Fett does that. He's even said, I never claimed to be a Mandalorian. Bo-Katan and her ilk, they do that. That's fine. I like that Din would may choose, like you both said, to change his own belief system, how he approaches situations, not just being hard and fast about what he learned, but like adapting to the new world that he now lives. Like his ship is gone, the Grogu is gone, all these things in his life are gone. What's coming next? How do I be flexible in just what's coming next? But I don't want him to take his helmet off on a regular basis, because I think that would actually cheapen his own. It's almost like a bellwether for his own moral compass. Like, this is, like you said, Brandon, like the acting is done so well with that helmet on that I think it would probably cheapen things down a bit if we change that. Oh, actually, sorry. Speaking of the helmet, I totally forgot to mention this earlier. Ryan, you made a comment about sound and sound effects. I don't know if either of you caught it, but there was a moment when Den walked up to one of the doors or at some point, and he like sighed because he was in pain, and it was a Darth Vader breathing sound. It was a like I heard it in the helmet. I'm like, wait, what? And I had to rewind it for a second. And like, there's a split second where his exhale, like a pained exhale, you can hear it. It is the respirator from Darth Vader for like a split second. I'm like, oh, that's totally what that was. I'm like, that is awesome. Like, because he, obviously he has filtration systems and stuff in his helmet. We know that, but to give that ode to like, not just that he's pained and using that sound, but using that sound to express the fact that Darth Vader was always in pain, literally was always in pain. That's why he was so strong in the dark side as Darth Vader, because the machinery was made to like constantly poke and prod him to keep his nerves going. But anyway.
No, I love that. I know that we're like almost out of time here, and we've only talked about the first half of the episode. Well, there's this, and this was the best part. It was this episode that was just like the gift that kept giving. Like, we leave Halo, and then it's a whole nother set of great references, and a return to Tatooine. And reconnecting with Amy Sedaris and all of these droids, which I love, from R5 to Treadwell, and of course BD.
BD. Oh
yeah,
my God,
that was great.
Right there. I mean, oh my God, that we could stop just right there. BD was amazing. For if anyone doesn't know, Jedi Fallen Order, you don't even have to play the game. Just go to YouTube and type in like all cutscenes from Jedi Fallen Order. It's like a 2-hour video. You can watch literally every cutscene from the entire game, and that alone will blow your mind. But what I was immediately thinking is like, well, Cal's not going to show up in this because that would just not make sense. He's for the game. But where is he? What happens? Why is BD now here? I'm like, I'm like, oh my God, what else are they going to do this? I mean, we've already got the announcement that there's going to be Fallen Order 2, and I think it's actually coming out later this year. I think it's in 2023 it's coming out. But
yeah, I thought it was interesting that we I'm not saying 100% for sure that BD unit is Cal's BD unit, because she never calls him BD1.
That's
but
true. Okay.
It's very interesting that we got him in an episode, but we got a BD unit in an episode like immediately following the news about Fallen Order 2.
Yeah. I don't think that's an accident.
I feel like those announcements were definitely timed deliberately.
Yes. Agreed. Totally agree.
Yeah, the thing, there was this reveal. So if there's a thing that I've liked that they've done is, the prequels were a rough time for Star Wars fans, but there were parts of those prequels that I absolutely loved. And I remember when I saw an N1 starfighter the very first time, and I thought, damn, that looks slick. Like, I remember looking at that and just, it was everything. It was like Art Deco. It was all of this just like really cool design. It was like the future if designed by someone in like the turn of the century, So great. Such a really cool design. And so when Amy Sedaris takes the cover off for the ship that Mando's going to be using, and it's an N1 starfighter, Naboo Royal Starfighter, design, built by the
handmade, no droid manufactured,
ordered by the Queen of Naboo herself. I was just like, we're done. We're done, everybody. Thank you.
Turn the lights off.
Me too.
Yeah, right there. I was like, the episode's done. I've hit my limit. And I don't want to jump too far into this, but when he goes off on his joyride. It was again, it's taking the things that were great from the prequels, and there were very specific things, like some of the designs, like some of the world building that they had, like Camino, like pod racing, which was unbelievable to see in the theater the very first time I saw it. All of those callbacks in this episode were like, yeah, this is what I'm here for. Like, yes. I'm that's not fan service. That could be. I don't care. It was great.
Brendan,
I'll take more of that, please.
Brendan, I know you look like you were chomping the bit to say something there, but I wanted to throw out, just out of curiosity for both of you, I have a question. Yeah. When Amy Sedaris went to go pull the cover off that ship, and the camera starts panning around it, and you start to see some of the foils and stuff of the engines, was your first thought that was an N1? Because it was not what my first thought that was.
Oh, yeah, 100. I immediately, the ship came off, I was like, there it is.
Okay. As she was walking around, I'm like, is that Anakin's pod racer? I'm like, is she about to unveil Anakin's pod racer? Like, the way that the circular engines looked as the thing's still on, and she's getting a pants on, and she's about to pull the thing off. I'm like, is she holding Anakin's pod racer? I'm like, that would be too much, right? And then it pulls off. I'm like, oh, okay. No, this makes a lot more sense because he needs a ship to go into space. But for a minute there, I'm like, what?
Oh man, but still, that ship is just like,
oh my god, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But me too. I was like, how much more can you give me in an hour?
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, again, it was. I know that people complained about that sequence being so long, about them dealing with the Jawas and like, oh, they're trading and they're working on the ship, and oh, they felt like that was padding time. But you know what? I didn't mind it. I actually enjoyed all that. I used to play Racer, which was an N64 game where you had to trade out things on your pod racer, and all of those parts I recognized the names of. I thought that was so great. I loved the whole building, the final reveal of everything, and then the joy riding of pod racing. And even there was another reference where he takes right off, and the sequence is aimed down at him. And if you listen carefully, there's even music cues and a look that they do where, and this isn't like a great movie, but it is a comic book movie, which is Man of Steel, The First Flight. It's almost mirrors that. Captain Marvel does a similar audio cue and the look down when Captain Marvel flies the first time. Both of those were great. I mean, there was just so much depth in this.
Mm-hmm.
So many things that were great, that added to the story, that made it fun. But if you were a fan, if you didn't know any of this, it was cool and you enjoyed it. But if you were a fan, there was stuff here. It was like levels and levels and levels. It was great.
Did you guys?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Did you guys catch the cameo in the X-wings at the end? Did you not? So there was the first cameo that was obvious. There was the actor from Kim's Convenience Store who was in The Mandalorian. But did you catch who the other person was?
He was. I think this is what you're talking about. But he was the Luke Skywalker body double for.
Yep. Max Lloyd Jones. Yeah. Yep.
Cool for him that he gets to be himself in something.
Yeah, that was really rad. That was super cool. I loved it. Was silly, but I absolutely loved when Mando's being questioned by him. He's like, we should go back to another planet. And he's like, flicks the little switch, hits it, and just it's gone. And the two of them said, should we have to go after him? He's like, do you want to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork? No. All right, we're just gonna go.
Yeah.
Oh. I loved that. I loved how that was very much like a Cops reference. I thought that was great. That whole episode was from beginning to end, and I'm a big fan of Amy Sedaris. So seeing Amy Sedaris again, and there's even a reference to the Pikes on Tatooine, which I still think are the Tatalias of this show. I'm waiting for Don Barzini to make his grand entrance, because you know, I think this is great. I know we're at the end of getting to the end here, from a time perspective. It's already past 10 p.m. Pacific, but I will say, I'm going right back to what Brandon said at the start of the show. A plus. I mean, and in the context of the Boba Fett show so far, best episode of the Boba Fett show. In the context of the Mandalorian, this might be maybe one of my. It's up there. It's in the top 3 at least. Maybe one of the top 2.
Yes.
Yeah. It was just one of the best hours of Star Wars. Period.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah,
it was like getting to see a movie, but as a surprise, you know.
Yeah, yes. And at my favorite part, I shouldn't say my favorite part. What hooked me on, like, solidified me agreeing with both of you, A plus, is at the very end. He's interacting with Fennec, and she's like, "Could you use a job?" He's like, "I don't know. What's it paying? Whatever." And he's like, "Keep the money. I'll do it. But I gotta go do something. Like, I gotta go see someone first, or I gotta do a thing first." And I'm like, is he referencing going to Grogu, or is he referencing doing something else at this moment that he has to go do? And I'm like, and how is that actually going to lead into the timeline for the next episode? Because clearly he's going to be in the next episode, but what's that going to do? Who is he going to? Does he somehow know what Grogu is and going to go deliver this, or is he talking about somebody else or something else that he has to go see before he can come back and actually help out? I'm very curious about that, because if it's as simple as finding Grogu and delivering that, okay, it'd be interesting how you know where Grogu is just at right now, and you're just going to go hand him a chainmail and hop on back. But it feels like that would be too easy. It feels like he's going to see someone else that might be able to help too, or that he needs to round something out with. I'm very curious about that. Before we wrap, there was we have someone in the chat, Pedinato, I hope I'm saying that right, who had a question a little bit earlier that might be interesting to bring up real quick.
Well, they agreed with me, so I'm already a big fan of this viewer.
Well, then we can just call it good. We can just call it good. This is way overshaped here, but do you think Jon Favreau was very intelligent considering being a Mandalorian as practicing a creed?
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, as
really,
opposed to
really
just
smart.
Yeah, as opposed to being. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brendan.
Oh no, I'm sorry, but I think it could be argued that the creed that they're practicing might specifically not be great, but the concept is great. Because even if this specific creed that, you know, the armor and Din Djarin follow is not great, overall that's actually always been a thing that Mandalorians are. Even in Legend stuff, Old Republic stuff, the Mandalorians still all are a very creed based people. They're very like honor based, creed based culture. So I think he's doing a huge honor to that, in continuing that, even though it's kind of in a different light and it's in a different way, it's still very reminiscent of how they've always been depicted.
Yeah, I liked that. I liked the continuation of that, because it is very reflective of how, like the Jedi, it's a thing that you can adopt, or it can adopt. It's not something that you necessarily have to be born into. Mm-hmm. And I always like stories that are like that. I feel like that's great, because it's not someone who is necessarily born to do something or born to be something, but it's something that you can choose to be, like Din Djarin, or something that is kind of put upon you, like, you know, suddenly being born with the Force and becoming a Jedi. I like that it's a creed. I think that helps the story.
Yeah, there's something very, for me, there's something almost Arthurian about it, because it's almost you're almost compelled, like somebody is almost compelled to do it, but compelled in a way that makes them feel like this is something I actually want. It feels like whatever trials I'm going to have to go through, I feel compelled that I need to change my life to go do this. Not compelled like you took a kid hostage and I have to do this, or you did a negative thing to me, so I feel like, well, now I got to go do this thing. No, it's almost... The creed basis is almost like, I feel like, and the fact that it is not like, it can be accessible to other people, that you can, like you said, you can choose to do it, but you would choose to in a way that, like, I feel compelled that this is the right thing for my life, so I'm going to set aside other things and you know, commit myself to this thing. I think there's something very, like, when I say Arthurian, I mean like very much, King Arthur and like committing to being the king that he wants to be based on finding this sword and going, no, you know what, this is what we're going to do. I have to do this because this is the thing I need to do. Like that sort of feeling of being compelled, as opposed to someone's holding something over your head.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that feeling is really integral to his character. Like, what would this hero's journey for him be if he was not part of this creed? Because a lot of the challenge he deals with, a lot of like the emotional stress that he deals with, it's because of that creed. It is specifically because he's struggling with, well, this is what I think I should do. This is what the creed wants me to do. The creed wants me to take Grogu here, but I don't want to get rid of Grogu. You know, it's like all of it is that creed is at the center of who he is, and all of these decisions that he makes, and the growth that he probably will continue to go through. But it's like that, it's so important to who he is as a character. I don't think the show would even be nearly as good without it, because it drives him so much.
I totally agree.
Yeah. You see it constantly, and how he's having to make those decisions in and around that creed. I really enjoy it. I feel like, though, there's another topic that we could get into, which is how did this episode, even though it's very mirrors the themes of Boba Fett, how does this episode help the perception of the Book of Boba Fett? Because I found myself thinking, I like, in this whole time, like, I've been like, okay, it's getting better. But now this show went and took me somewhere else. Went and took me over, and I got to spend time with like an old friend. A lot of old friends. And now I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to go back. And there's only 2 more episodes left of the Book of Boba Fett, and I thought this was a big spend, and you took us away from the narrative.
It means there's a reason. I mean, we all 3 of us know
that's
that.
What
like,
I think.
There's a very compelling reason why they did it. I mean, I have to believe that. I have to believe there's a solid reason for it. But I think we should put a pin in it. And after the season's over, let's come back and do an episode where we talk about exactly this, because I think there's a lot. I think I'm almost seeing 2 sides of the same coin in Mando's journey or Den's journey, even in this episode, and how it links with where Boba's journey is going in the stories we've been seeing. I feel like they're 2 sides of the same coin at this point, but we'll come back to that. And Rich, of course, man, we totally appreciate you saying that. And I mean,
thank you, man.
top 4 episodes, awesome.
Thank you so much.
So we're gonna wrap up. Everyone, thank you so much for being here and being in the chat and contributing. We really appreciate it. You can like and subscribe on YouTube, or follow us on all the different places wherever you're coming from. Most everyone, I think, tonight is on YouTube, but we're on all the platforms: the Facebooks, the LinkedIn, everywhere. So you can follow us. And yeah, we'll catch up with everybody next week after another episode of Boba Fett. And we were going to talk about comics too tonight, but Boba Fett was totally more important.
Eventually.
Exactly. We'll get there eventually. Awesome, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week.
Hey, good night, everybody.
See ya.
Good night.